It's time to go into business for yourself. Get ready for another episode of the Franchise Academy podcast. Here's your host, small business and franchise expert, Tom Scarda.
Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy. Glad you're here. My name is Tom Scarda. I'm a franchise advisor and coach, and I match people with opportunities based on skills, personality, goals, kind of like the eHarmony of business is what I like to call it. And today I'm excited because I have Jess Bisher with me. Jess is the owner of a super great franchise called Redbox Plus Dumpsters. A really unique concept. We're going to talk about it today. You're going to love it. So I appreciate you listening in. If you have any ideas of anything you'd like to hear about in franchising, please email me and I'll do an episode about any questions that you might have about franchising. Just email tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. Jess, I want to welcome you to the Franchise Academy. How are you?
Thanks, Tom. Happy to be here.
This is so great. So Jess, you got to understand, Jess owns this franchise, Redbox Plus, for 4 years. She owns Montgomery County, Bucks County, all kind of the Philadelphia suburbs, and services that area. But she's a mom of 4 kids who are all under the age of 7. And so she's doing all of this, building a business at the same time. She has an engineering degree from Notre Dame. She has an MBA from a little school called Wharton Business School. I mean, wow, like you're the whole package, Jess. And I'm so honored to have you on the show. This is so great.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Tom. You flatter me, but just doing my best every day here.
That's what you're doing. It's amazing what you're doing. So I just have to start with like, okay, you got all these degrees. You're an engineer. Why did you choose to go into franchising?
Yeah. I mean, so I got my engineering degree. I never wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to, study philosophy or something, definitely not engineering, but I was good at math. So my parents made me do engineering. I went into construction for 5 years and I worked in heavy highway construction, Tom. It was a very demanding industry, very aggressive, throwing phones at walls and working nights and weekends. And, it just wasn't, I didn't see my future there, right, long term. So I went and I got my MBA full time, which is a pretty big decision to get an MBA full time. And then I worked for in an operations role in a warehouse. Coming out of business school, I always wanted to start my own business. I toyed around with a couple different business ideas previously, and especially while I was getting my MBA. But I got pregnant my last year of my MBA, and my risk tolerance, I guess you would say, shifted at that moment. And so instead of starting my own business, I got a job. I had my 3 kids there. Within 3 years, I just kept having kids. And I hit this point where I was finally not pregnant or nursing. I'd been pregnant or nursing for 4 years, and I finally wasn't. And I thought, what do I want to do for myself? And I said, I'm going to start a business. But again, I had 3 kids under 3. And so I said, well, let me look at franchising some, and what's this about? Do smart people really do this? Or, and I listened to a whole bunch of podcasts. So this is very appropriate full circle to kind of be on one now.
That's so cool.
Listened to a bunch of podcasts. And then connected with a franchise consultant. And it really felt like it was the appropriate time in my life to do something like owning a franchise.
And you connected with my buddy, David Weaver, through the process.
Yes.
So,
yeah, he was phenomenal. I love spreading his name because that's how I heard of him on a podcast. Someone said, I use this franchise consultant, David Weaver. And it just sounded so great that I looked him up on LinkedIn and I reached out to him, and bada bing.
The rest is history.
Yes.
I love that. His wife, Anne Marie, is awesome. I mean, I've known him for years. So that's so cool that you did that. So what David did for you is he analyzed who you are, what makes you tick, and it presented a few different franchise opportunities, and then you chose Redbox Plus. Why?
Yeah, yeah. And first, I actually chose a flooring business before Redbox Plus. And we were about to buy that existing business, and COVID hit, and we never bought that existing business. It literally changed the day COVID hit. And so I went back to David and I said, we need to find something in Philadelphia. I'm not moving my family. Let's look around here. And he suggested Redbox Plus. And within, I mean, it was probably 2-3 months that I bought into the concept from when I heard of it to when I was signing the paperwork. So for me, it went extremely quickly. Redbox Plus to me is like the epitome of what you want in a business, right? So I have a recurring customer base. Contractors literally just text me, right? So I'm not going after a homeowner, I'm going after a contractor. They text, here's my 10 dumpsters I need next week. I have a high revenue business. So high revenue business, recurring customer. And I'm not going into anybody's houses. I send a driver, we drop a dumpster off, and then we pick it up. That's all I have to do. I have to drop a dumpster off and I have to pick it up when I say I'm going to do it. So for me, I like that aspect of the business model, but really Redbox Plus Dumpsters is the dumpster with the toilet combination, which is genius. It's a patented product. And the second I heard of that, especially coming from the construction industry, I was like, sold. This will allow me to get my foot in the door with any contractor.
Right.
And then from there, I'll just impress them with service, and that'll be that.
And that's it. So I mean, you could, any town in America, you could get a dumpster, but there's no one that has a dumpster with a porta potty included in the dumpster mechanism, I guess. Maybe
Right.
you could explain it better than I can. But the cool thing is number one, it's patented. So, for the next, whatever it is, 15 years, no one else could do this in America. And what you're doing is giving it to the contractor for the same price he would, you're giving it to him for the same price or less you're not charging for the porta potty part.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So like where normally you would need to call 2 different companies, you would have 2 different drivers come out, one would deliver a dumpster, one would deliver a toilet, and then you'd have 2 different invoices, all of that. It's literally one phone call, one driver, one pickup. So it's a very seamless experience for people who need both things on their job site.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way you explained it about, recurring revenue and all of that kind of stuff. It's a needed service, considered, I guess, as a B2B, a business to business concept. Can you go after homeowners if you wanted to, or is it
Yeah.
not? Or...
Yeah. And I certainly do. I mean, I'm probably about 10% of my business is homeowners, right? Who call and, they see your dumpster, or, they find me on Google. But I mean, I even just stopped doing my Google SEO recently because, well, I just don't need it, to be frank. Like my money is better spent finding a contractor who I'm going to build a relationship and is just going to be a recurring customer, than talking to the homeowner for 10 minutes about, yes, there's a door on the dumpster and it opens this way, and all of that. So I do certainly have homeowners. And some Redbox Pluses actually cater to homeowners more than I do. The Redbox Plus does offer a small truck, which is really focused on residential and homeowners. I chose not to go that route, and I probably never will for a variety of reasons. But so some people, do focus on homeowners more than I do.
Okay. Yeah, and I've seen the trucks around. I had a summer house in the Pocono Mountains, and I saw a redbox there.
There you
Uh,
go.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't think it was yours. It's probably too far north for you, but
Yeah, that'd be my neighbors.
yeah. And so you have one truck and a bunch of these dumpster boxes. What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I started out with. I started out with one truck and 40 containers, right? Some of them have toilets, some of them don't. So there's a mix of the two. Um, yeah, that was a big hurdle, right? I'm in a capital intensive business, right? So that was like $500,000, half a million, and I'm like, I had to convince my husband, right? We're gonna do this, we're gonna put half a million into this business. And I mean, very quickly after that, that half a million was 1.5 million. So it was like, I laugh about it because I had to work so hard to convince my husband for the first half a million, and then it was like I just kept going. I just kept saying, nope, nope, we need more and more and more. And so it grew really quickly. So I'm at the point now, I've got 6 trucks, 166 dumpsters, and
Oh my
probably
goodness.
about 170 toilets, with that.
Wow.
Every little girl's dream, right, Tom? So,
Right. Right.
yeah,
So it's funny because I say to people, like if somebody does a consultation, anybody who's ever worked with me knows I always ask the question, what if you were at a barbecue and you had to tell everybody that you're in the porta potty business? How would that sit with you?
yeah,
Uh, and most people say they don't care and they make jokes about it, but there are people who are like, oh no, I can never do a business like that. I can never tell my friends I'm in that business.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
fun. How do you deal with that kind of status issue?
yeah, yeah. It's to me, right. So I'm just the kind of person that really is drawn to that kind of business model and life, and like it doesn't matter to me at all that it's not sexy by any means. Like I in fact I like that, like I'm never the type of person that's going to drive a fancy car. It's just not me, right? I'll drive my minivan and in into the ground, because it's just my personality. So that's fine. But there certainly is an aspect of um I've cleaned porta potties, right? You own a porta potty company, you own a dumpster company, like you got to do it. You do get your hands dirty, you get in there. So the first time I really actually sucked up toilet water from a portable toilet, I thought like, wow, I really am doing this. I really do own a toilet company. Here we go. So
Wow,
yeah.
that's so great. And it's funny because I always say to folks, like the more unsexy the business, the more it's needed, in the community.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of times, we can't talk about earnings and money and all that stuff, but it seems that these unsexy businesses many times just make a lot of money.
Yeah.
um, Fly under the radar. And people call me to buy a franchise. They're like, "Well, can I get into a Chick-fil-A?" That's like it's
Yeah.
always fast food. That's what they're always thinking about.
Yeah.
Uh, but all these other businesses, they're actually less expensive, even though what you're in is pretty expensive.
Hmm.
But the unsexy businesses, they do really well. And
Yeah.
so what was your approach to getting this thing to launched so quickly? Like I didn't even know there was franchisees that had 6 trucks. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. 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 So for me, I- so we just said I'm an engineer and I have my MBA, but I'm actually not that analytical of a person, believe it or not. So I'm like I really trust my business gut. And I don't know how I'm blessed to be able to have confidence in my business intuition. Like I don't really know where that came from. Eh, but I do. I have a lot of trust in my business intuition. So and kind of like an operational understanding, right? So when I had my first truck, um, and again I spent all this money, within the first month, I was like, I can't run a business on one truck, right? That's absurd. Your truck goes down, and now, right, because I very quickly learned they don't run like like cars, like they go down, like they're work machines and they have lots of issues. And a brand new truck, even though you just spent 200 grand on it, it'll break down and be down, right? Um, so got the second truck right away. After that, I said, well, I got to get myself worked out of this business. I need room for overhead. So I got to continue to grow. So I got the third truck, and all the while, you're buying more dumpsters, more dumpsters. And then a business next to me was going out of business, a Redbox Plus. And he approached me, said, "You want to buy?" And I was pregnant with my fourth kid. I had just bought 3 trucks very quickly. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst time I could ever double the size of my business, because he had 2 trucks and 80 dumpsters. And um, but I did it. I did it because I also said, look, I'm going to have a baby. It's still going with this overhead thing, right? Like, I need to grow this business to a point where my business can operate without me. And if it's too small, then there's no margin to hire people to do that. And so I bought that extra stuff a couple months before I had my fourth child. Yeah.
Wow. So it's also sounds like you have to be courageous enough to know that you're going to take 2 steps back to take 2 more or 3 more steps forward.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting thing that you said. You needed the business to be bigger in order to support you need the business to be big enough to support itself, essentially.
Yeah. 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 And Tom, I think that's something that's really interesting sometimes as I reflect on the brand as well. Like, nobody told me that I needed to grow and grow and grow, right? Because they brought a bunch of people into this business. People put all their life savings into it. It's a super capital intensive business, right? You max out on a lot of fronts, and you're just eking out enough profit at the beginning, and you think, well, is this really going to make it? Is it not going to make it? Right? I'm going to wait a little. But then you wait so long that now your business really isn't making money, but it's been running for so long, and now it makes it harder to access additional capital to grow your business. So they're really, and I didn't know this at the time, but as I look back on it, like, there's such an advantage to getting out of the gates quickly and like growing to a certain point. Because if you don't, right, you can explain away at the very beginning, oh, I'm not making that much money, right? Because I just started. But after you've been operating for a long time and you're not making that much money, it's like, well, how do I get more capital to buy this super expensive equipment?
Right.
So, yeah.
That's great insight. I mean, for someone who's listening to the podcast and they're a new franchise owner or even thinking about buying a franchise, to go in kind of penny ante or put one toe in the water,
Hmm.
you're gonna get one toe in the water results, I guess.
Hmm.
And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're like, well, I don't know if this could make it, so I need to pull back and
Right.
instead of kind of doubling down and going forward. And it reminds me of an analogy I use all the time as a recreational pilot. What they teach you in flight school is, almost 90% of it is what happens when the engine fails. And so your inclination is the engine fails, you want to pull up to get the nose up on the plane.
Right.
That's the worst thing you could, because you lose the air under the wings, and that's when you go into a tailspin and crash. So the procedure is to go full throttle down, restart the engine, and
Hmm.
just get the air under your wings again. So,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So I think it's so analogous to business, because when things are, there's a lot of trepidation, and if you're gonna pull back, you're gonna go into a tailspin. But if you double down, like you're saying, as a Wharton graduate, like you double down, don't do it stupidly, of course, right? You got,
Right.
you got to do the analysis, and you got to
Yes.
run the
Yeah.
numbers and everything and the business plan and all that. But I love
Yeah.
it. You got to double down to make it work. And
That's
I
so true.
I did the same thing with my first business, and it took off because it kind of goes up and then it goes down, and then
Hmm.
it goes, uh,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah.
that all the time. So you're in it 4 years. I'm sure you had some hiccups along the way. Is there any kind of business lesson that you could share in that regard?
Yeah. I've had a number of hiccups. I mean, the first hiccup I had was that, one of my first big hiccups, so I busted my butt selling dumpsters to people before I had dumpsters, right? Pretending you got them and, oh yeah, whatever, you're selling to these customers, you get these customers on board. I had one driver, I didn't know how to drive, a roll-off truck. I still don't. I don't have my commercial driver's license. And my one driver, day 6, he hit a bridge. Day 9, he just left the truck and left. And so now I had no driver. I quickly filled in another driver, and then I lost my truck on a landfill. I ran over a box spring, and the truck was completely, like, the insides of the truck were completely eaten out. And I took that. I had to drive up this landfill. I don't know if you've ever been on top of a landfill. It was my first time. I had to drive up this landfill to the very top of I think it's the largest landfill in the US. At least it's the largest on the East Coast, right? I'm in Philadelphia. All the New York trash is coming here. It's right. And I'm sitting up there with the truck. And I remember I called my husband. I said, can you please, he was working nearby. I said, can you come out here and help me? And he said to me over the phone, he said, I'm not coming out there. This is, like, you wanted to do this. This is you're going to learn the hard way. This is, and I was like, oh my God. So I sat up there in the landfill with the birds pooping on my head for 5 hours as my truck was towed away. And, I really learned from those experiences, though. It's like how quickly and you have to be and how adaptable you have to be in business, right? Which is like, when those setbacks happen, you just have to, you got to figure it out one way or another. You just jump and you make moves and you figure it out. I really live by the motto of like when people ask me stuff, I just say yes, and then I figure it out, right? So if I don't have enough dumpsters, I just said yes, and then I figured out how I was going to make it work. If someone asked me, did I do junk removal? At the beginning, I would just say yes, and then I'd figure out, how am I going to find labor to do this junk removal, and as I'm now in the luxury that I don't, I have the luxury of not having to scramble as much anymore. My business is a little more established. But at first, I mean, it was just, I said yes to everything. I scrambled for everything. Yeah.
Wow. That's real grit and determination, and that's how you get things done. That's, that's success. It's inspiring. And then you probably had some good things happen, right? Anything
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, so for me, I'll never forget. Right. So I've never owned my own business. This is the first time. I'll never forget. And you might relate to this, Tom. The first time I had an employee who had worked for me for a year, and I gave him, just a little card, 1 year. This hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I've just employed this person. I've paid for his livelihood for a year. I've paid for his food and his house and his whole life. Like, I've supported him for a year. And like, I just felt like that was the coolest feeling, that I get to do this for people, like, that I've now created something where, wow, I'm supporting all these people's livelihoods. It was really cool. Yeah.
It is. Yes, I relate very much to that.
Yes.
I mean, there was a couple that met in my smoothie franchise and got married and had kids, and like,
There you go.
I think about like, hey, if I didn't start that business, would they have ever met? Like, it's weird, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. You
So,
start to feel like, wow, you have a kind of power that, my wheels just start spinning. I recently had an employee who, had something come up in his life. He needed an advance on his paycheck. And I thought, well, what are the risks? What are the, advantages, whatever. And I gave him the advance on his paycheck, and it just felt like, and it was all fine. Everything was great, but it just felt all of a sudden like, wow, I kind of have this power that I didn't think about, right? Which is like this power to help people's lives in a positive way, which is, I don't think I do a ton of it, right? But my wheels start thinking as I grow my business and I establish it more, like, where could this go to? That's kind of fun to think about. Yeah.
amazing, right? You're creating something that wasn't there before. you're employing people, you're creating a tax base in the community. There's so much positive that people don't even think about or talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of the thing that I also love about business, and even in my role to be able to affect, that, like you bought a franchise through David Weaver. David lives in Colorado. You're in Philadelphia. You're employing this person needed in advance. If you weren't there, what would have happened? It's like you could do all that kind of butterfly effect stuff.
Yeah.
And just that
Sure.
is so fascinating to me. But the thing that stands out also, aside from your awesome education and your true grit as a business owner, is fantastic. But you're a mom. Like, so many people would say, I got 4 kids. Like, I'm not starting no franchise. Are you crazy? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because I don't know if I'll be able to explain this well, but I remember looking at my husband when I wanted to do this, and his risk tolerance is not nearly as high as mine, right? So I did do a lot of kind of talking about this, persuading. So but we kind of looked at each other and we said, you know what, like our life is hard no matter what. Like when you have young kids, your life is hard. Whether you're a stay-at-home parent, whether you work out of the home, like no matter what, my life is going to be really freaking hard. But if I can create a life where I have some control over right, I don't have a boss, I'm my own boss, I'm reporting only to myself and I'm controlling my schedule, like there's a level of, right, as everyone says, a level of freedom in that. And so that aspect of it really called to me. I mean, even this sounds crazy, but my prior business, like my prior job before I started this business, I didn't have a laptop that I could bring home, right? Like that was the kind of, so right, a lot of parents will talk about, oh well, I leave early to go to the doctor's appointment, but then I pull out my computer and I work at night. Like I had none of that flexibility. And that was very hard as a working mom. Right. COVID changed everything, right? I thought, oh my gosh, now I'm working from home. This is amazing. And then everybody, right, got to work from home. So, the world changed a lot since then, but it was really that freedom to control my own schedule that made a big difference. But I'm also a little crazy, Tom. Like sometimes I really think I'm a little crazy. Like I like chaos. Like a lot of people maybe wouldn't do what I'm doing.
Right. It takes all types to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
We need people that are going to work in the office and do the back office stuff and the scheduling and whatever. And then we need people to be crazy, the crazy people that actually change the world. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. What is one myth, if I could ask you, one myth that you could bust right here, right now about franchising or maybe even the dumpster business, Redbox Plus.
Yeah, I guess I'd say, certainly with um franchising, I, and this might not be true, Tom, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I think that, people who think they're buying a business in a box, that's not the truth. There's no easy button, right? If there was an easy button, everyone would be doing it. And so you really have to say, am I cut out for business ownership? Would I do this by myself? Would I start a business by myself? And if the answer is yes, then great, franchising is for you. But if there's just no business in a box. Yeah.
That's so well said. You're right about that. And I'm glad you said that. I don't think anybody has said that before on the show. And so I often say to people, if you're the kind of person that thinks, hey, I'm going to join a gym and I'm going to get in shape just because you joined, don't buy a business.
Mhm.
You actually have to go to the gym, just like the business. You actually have to do the business, use the equipment. You have to show.
Yes.
So it's very much like that. A franchise is a business with training wheels, so it's like having a coach that's helping you. But
Mhm.
but you're doing it. It's you.
Mhm.
Your business, 100%, and you reap the rewards and you reap the negative side if you don't run the business correctly and listen to your coach. And so this is wonderful. I mean, the insight from you as a franchise owner and as a mom, it's just been awesome, just off the charts for me. So I appreciate you coming on the show, Jess. It's just an honor to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tom. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. If anybody ever wants to talk to Jess, you can find her at Redbox Plus on their website, or you can go to thefranchiseacademy.com. Her stats will be there as well. And I'm sure you're on LinkedIn, right, Jess?
That's right. Yep.
So, Jess, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. You too, Tom.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye bye.